Aries, and ho ho ho, it's a December edition, the kind of like last monthly for this year. So please support the channel and order your annual horoscopes. They're like still on the pre-order price, and actually they're really interesting, so, and really works for me because it does really help kind of like pay all this uploading and internet fees, so greatly appreciate it. Another challenge this month is that I really want to hear from you. I really want to know who is on the other side of this video. So if you can, whatever kind of like strikes your chord, kind of like stop by and comment or say hi, that would be like so wonderful. So quick thing, we have Rido, which is the rune of time, also basically rules transportation, which is really interesting because right now we are going through Mercury Retrograde and all kinds of communication, transportation things can actually really get messed up. And then there's like the truth here. So there is like also truth that I actually see that in this kind of like angelic card, which is kind of like really interesting. And I really love this, and especially I love the combination. I'm going to tell you more, and we are going to see how this really comes in a big reading, but you have like this big thing, regeneration. And look at that, the stone is actually turning into fire, and guess who is really big fire? Yep, you are. So let's start, let's jump into kind of like shuffling and see what else is basically being brought to you this particular month. Hello Aries, and again happy new year, and hopefully everything is like really so amazing ahead of us. So let's start, let's see what is bringing for you this particular month. I really like the fact that you have regeneration, and it's like not only the card, which is like so amazing, but it's 46, and 4 and 6 is 10, and this is kind of like a motion. It's like something moving forward. Not many people can or dare to move forward during Mercury retrograde, because the function of Mercury retrograde is really looking back, and only very advanced souls can take things from whatever it was in the past, grab it and say, you know what, I'm taking this and I'm going to make it different and better. Because I'm seeing here again replicated in this card, you're having this 6 of Swords. So what do we see? We see the kind of like carriage, kind of like pushing it forward. They're like this like big kind of like eyes. They're like something in the back that kind of like really was not the way it should be. Because this card is always basically indicating a situation that requires a solution or a plan of action. But before you can get to it, you really have to stop what you're doing, right? So I think that maybe the current approach or something that you have planned to do is maybe making things a little bit kind of complicated. But the solution exists, and you guys are like that way. When you find a solution, you're just like really going after that, right? There's like a little part of your brain where you kind of like created a rut, and it kind of like layered the same wrong thinking over the problems. It's kind of like something that is buried, and hence Mercury retrograde is right now saying, okay, let's kind of like remedy this. You haven't seen solution because you kind of like got too much in your way. So there is like a time to peel away all the thoughts and approaches that maybe you have tried and kind of like left them behind. So clear your mind completely, and we can see that here, and ask for clarity, and then you're going to be able to really quickly transition over the obstacle, right? So let's see what else is coming up, and then we are going to hopefully find more answers about these initial suggestions that I got there. So let's leave this one over here because it's going to be really important, this transitioning, because this is, to me, again, the travel is now showing up twice. So I don't know, maybe some of you are literally traveling and literally kind of like doing stuff, but I really feel this is kind of like talking about transitioning into kind of like higher level, into higher vibration. Well, there is another 6, so there is like a soulmate kind of like approach. The Lovers card is really talking about feeling empowered. It is called Lovers, but it's really talking about the choice. Do I really want to repeat and spin kind of like few more times, or do I really kind of like want to kind of like make something work? It is kind of deciding where to go and how to move forward. It is kind of like a situation where we maybe see people differently, and the way we see them is not so much as a kind of like just a personal interest, hey, I like you, or we can work together, but you're more seeing them in a very kind of like organic way, that they're just a person, you know, like there's like nobody here who is idolized, right? So a really good card to appear, which is a good news for either personal or professional union. It's not only a good match, but promises something extraordinary to come out of the partnership, right? Almost like promises are fulfilled, right? Again, the crux of the card is a decision. It's like something kind of like moving it forward. You need to move the last few inches, right? There is this motion, but now just you need to seal the deal. You need to close it, and you will know it is the right thing to do, because everything in your body, including your heart, will tell you so. So just get your mind on board and kind of like what they call it, seal it with a kiss. It's either metaphorical or actual, and then kind of like really watch what wonderful things are coming your way. I'm actually really so excited to see that, because you guys had a rough few months, to say the least, some of you longer, and this is like really good soulmate kind of like thing. Things are moving forward and you're kind of like feeling energized. So here is like this Knight of Swords. Something about this person, if you don't have anybody, then somebody is really going to come and knock on your door, and be ready. Just like put your makeup on, kind of like make sure you're like dressed up to the nines, right? Because it could be like really on your way to throw away the garbage. Because this tells me that maybe you're a little bit upset, maybe you're a little bit worried if you should move on, if you should start dating, if you should go in this direction. Like there is like this kind of like situation where that happens before we kind of like really spread our wings and fly. It's kind of like, hey, do I have enough gas, and what do I do? Which is kind of like really good. It's kind of like anxiety, and it's a situational anxiety. It is like a situation that you're going to be in that is kind of like very very unusual, but it is in a sense something that scared you in the past because maybe it didn't end well, or maybe you think you're kind of like getting ahead of your skis, or want more that can be given. So you need to kind of like relax. That's why the other card over here on the bottom was like this Four of Swords. Like, look at all these thoughts. Like, this is everything so far that we saw is air. So I don't know if it's going to be sea travel or air travel or simply spiritual travel, but there is like this really strong connection. We see that here as well. There is like this universal celestial energy, God's power, that is really coming through. So I don't know what kind of like belief system you subscribe, if that's basically God. So then prayers will really come true. Something is going to really come to fruition. So something is really happening over here. So let's see what is like on the base. And then we have this King of Swords. I'm never happy to see this fellow. To me, this is Judge Judy, somebody who is abrupt, somebody who maybe kind of like really don't see things properly, but they think they do. Maybe you have been dealing with a person, again we see the air, who maybe you're dealing with air, maybe you're dealing with somebody who continuously kind of gets up on the wrong side of the bed, right? Who's continuously in a bad or foul mood. Maybe you have been dealing with somebody depressed. Maybe you're dealing with somebody controlling. Maybe you're dealing with somebody who is distant, and somebody who is maybe not communicating as well as you would like them to, or maybe somebody who's always looking for opportunity to kind of like clash with you. It's kind of like really interesting, because you guys have extremely high energy. You're the highest energy of all fire signs, and air is a little bit higher, so you're even pushing that limits, and that makes sense if you're going into that regeneration, kind of like branching up and kind of like exceeding. So let's see what was that in the past. it was like some kind of like defensiveness. It was like you're reaching something where you wanted to go. You sort of like set some path where you really wanted to be, and you got there. But like the unfortunate part is like once you get there, like everybody else think it was easy. Isn't this kind of like you finally achieve something, what they say, overnight success, yay, overnight success, 10 years, and you just notice it now, kind of a thing, right? But now everybody thinks it's easy. Everybody thinks they can knock you down, and this is like something about you which I really admire. And I think this is where the truth kicks in. You are speaking your truth and you are standing your ground, and like this is something that already looks like happened, and you're kind of like reinforcing something. So it could have been clash with someone over here and you just like didn't want to have it, but even at that, it still kind of like resonates with you. Maybe, you know, it was one of those executive decisions that you have to make, which are never easy, because no matter what you decide, it's just like never a good solution. Should I stay or should I go, kind of a thing. If you stay, it's the same old same old. If you go, it's kind of like still missing the thing. So I can actually see that. So, but I also see like you transitioning to a much higher energy, and in this particular time, especially you're in the northern hemisphere, when we are kind of dealing with Christmas and many people are sad and maybe people are going in the winter blues, you want none of that, absolutely none of that. In fact, you will really need to pace yourself when it really comes to this month. So there is like this sadness. You see, there is like something that is described in this card, Five of Cups upright, and I rarely see the meaning the way I will tell you that I actually see it for you, because to me this is kind of like really talking about somebody again suffering this winter blues. Oh, I lost this and I have lost this and I will never regain this. Well, maybe there's another eager partner really waiting around, waiting to kind of like jump through to the action. So this in particular can actually mean that there is like some kind of like reunion, or there is like maybe somebody from the past returning. It's kind of like really interesting that I'm seeing kind of like, I don't know if this is you who felt controlled or you had to control the situation because it was getting out of hand. But I rarely see that as somebody coming back, which in this case I do. So there are like only two possible interpretation, that you are not willing to do things the way they were. You want to do things better. It must be better. It must be new. It must be going in this new direction, right? So it's really, really important, kind of like almost like midstream kind of a thing. It almost like feels like that this is not something new. For those of you who are just looking for a romance, yeah, you're moving in a new direction, but you're still working on some things that are kind of like a fog lingering over you, and this is really important to be addressed, because this kind of like anxiety is like sometimes when people really feel it, right? You go on date and people sniff you out, you know, like that's the sweat and pheromones and everything, and for no right reason, like, right, like, I mean, people can get scared, and there is like this something that for some reason, and I really feel it's kind of like because of some kind of like edgy attitude that you basically generated, kind of like is really, really coming to the fore. Be also very careful if that's you who wants to control something, because they can actually, that can end up in tears over here. So let's see, where is this going? So something is going. Knight of Pentacles is not necessarily an airplane. We are not seeing some huge motion over here. It's sort of like, let's kind of keep going. Knight of Pentacles to me, it's always a friend zone. I see that as sort of like, hey, you know what, like, I mean, let's see where this goes, but you know, let's not take it seriously, or let's kind of like really figure out, do we as people kind of like mesh? Do we as people kind of like come together? And I'm really glad to see Pentacles, because of all this air, it's like a balloon floating, having all these ideas, everything is great. It's pretty much reminds me of me, like, I mean, window shopping or internet shopping. Oh, I want that and that and that, and then the reality kicks in. Oh my god, I cannot afford this, so let's kind of like go down to, okay, what I like from the things that I can afford, and kind of like merging this. So it's kind of like slowly working with what you already have, and it's a really good card. It's kind of like acknowledging somebody's strength, but you otherwise you wouldn't see that if you're in a relationship. But at the same time, it is asking, maybe you transfer the relationship into friendship, right? Maybe you still have the interest in kind of going toward these relationships. It's kind of like maybe that anxiety is being born, like I really don't know in which direction to go. Maybe you really want to kind of like steer it toward one of those sides, so that can be causing this. And if that's the case, this is clearly telling you it's a warning, because obviously having major arcana, destiny is here involved, and that's why you're having like this rido, right? It's a rune of time, and it's kind of like also talking about the rotation of the heavens, which was like taught to be like a wheel of fortune, like that great basically cartwheel, right? Eternally revolving, right? So it's kind of like having a whole bunch of secondary associations, sort of like hence the transport and wheeled vehicles, kind of like in particular. That word rider means riding, right? And so it's kind of like really see how it's present in the reading. It really talks about travel, or even talks about the journeys of all kinds, right? Interestingly enough, rider is also I think relating to the month of April. So those April Aries are really kind of like going to have this special kind of like zest, right? I'm talking about Nordic calendar over here. So let's continue, right? Let's continue and see emotionally where you stand this month. But there is another 5, so that's going to be, and I'm not going to sugarcoat for you, you know I don't do it, and you love me and you hate me for it, right? So do 2 5s, destabilizing, 7 destabilizing, right? But you also have 4s and 6s, so that's why regeneration is happening. Regeneration cannot happen without something destabilizing. Do you really think this fire is like that kind of like beneficial? No, it's going to kind of cause issues, but hence it kind of like creates something else. It's kind of like dandelion, like when you kind of like blow it in the wind, it kind of like disperses everywhere, and yet you know it's going to be new growth, even though you have really nothing, like I mean physical to show for. Very much like this though, even though this is destabilizing, this means like going out of that circumstances, coming out of these predicaments. Maybe you feel somebody has left you out in a cold, maybe you feel isolated, maybe you feel there is like a third party that is inclusive in here, maybe you feel, I don't know, like maybe you feel like you're broken or somebody broke you. I mean, we see like 2 people really passing by something that has been safety, and now they're reversing, right? So all of this stuff, safety, like you realize it's illusion. There are no promises, especially not in love, right? No cup is going to be there forever. So now like there's like this understanding that you kind of like need to kind of like work on some kind of like new pragmatic things. So this is really all of a sudden shifting. So it looks like it's going to be lots of thinking, and that thinking is shifting into, okay, so what do I do about that? And it might actually really boil down to what do you do on a daily basis, and how do you basically relate to the other people. So let's see the environment, and then you have again Pentacles. You see, like, so you're completely getting grounded, and I'm actually really glad to see it. It's always good to see combination. Somebody is really like on your case. I really have to tell you, somebody's really looking in fine details, so sort of like combing this like with a fine-tooth comb. So it could be that there is like just some kind of friendship that is growing, which also this could be a new person who can be an earth sign. In particular, it can be Capricorn. So somebody who's like very traditional, kind of like dealing with your kind of like fiery nature, and you're going through regeneration. So that really goes to show that sometimes like 2 people who might be good for each other kind of like meet, but then, you know, like the circumstances are there that are pushing things in different directions. So hence this is really telling you, look, actually it's a good match, but it might actually meant to be friendship only, right? Because there was like this King of Swords, which I really think it's like really resonating with you. It kind of like felt you have been judged, and you do not forget stuff like that. You are not necessarily revengeful, and I don't see that here in the cards either, but you are not going to give up, and you are going to stand your ground. It's very, very important for you to do so. So here even though you did that, it looks like somebody might just like simply come in and start asking a whole bunch of questions, and how do you do that, and how do you do that. It might actually drive you crazy, but this is definitely a card of growth. So that kind of like, if you focus this month for things to get stronger, then the best kind of like way of doing that is kind of like going through friendship. So friendship, and you know I'm Aquarius, of course I'm tooting my own horn, is to me the highest form of relationship, because there is like no such thing as unconditional relationship and conditional love. Let's face it, this entire world is about achieving our own karma and understanding ego. This is why we are here on this planet. So that's why this is sort of like hell, and then we might transition it to heaven on the other side. Love and all kind of like different kind of like facets of love that we are learning right now. So friendship is the closest that comes to unconditional, because you're with the other person simply because you really want to be. There is like no sexual, there is like no romantic, there is like not you ordering them. You actually laugh at your friends, haha, you should not be doing that this way, and kind of like you still have fun with them. This is not the case when it comes to relationship, because like our ego is like more highlighted and heightened, and we kind of really get triggered more in that kind of like stuff. So here, for you to kind of like take the step back and kind of like firm the ground, so to speak, is kind of like really, really important. And if at any point you get exhausted, I think you're not going to get exhausted because things are going too fast. You're going to get exhausted because things are going too slow. You're going to go, okay, I'm going to fall asleep on the switch. But this is exactly what the doctor prescribed this particular month. So let's see your hopes and fears. And there is like this tree, and I love this card, and there is like this little fire. Finally it's a spark kicking out. You see the ships? These ships over here are talking about this new destination, kind of like new strivings. Where are we going? It's kind of like these new principles that we really, really want to apply. But these ships to me always talk of friendships, relationships, partnerships, right? Friendships. And when this kind of like reverses, of course, this is falling into you kind of like wondering, oh, am I going to be put into the friend zone? Or you're wondering, are we never going to be friends? Is nothing going to come out of it? There are lots of things, lots of thoughts, generally insecurity that are coming through. And for some reason, I'm feeling that there still could be another person here at play, right? So we kind of like do have this triangular indication that kind of like leads me to believe that it is like very, very important for you to have this direction. So you are ready, set and go, but there is like no gas in the tank, and this is really, really good. So you really have to use a bicycle instead, and like you're grumpy and you really don't want to do it, but trust me, this is going to be in your best interest. So let's see where this is heading. Oh my gosh, steady, slow and steady wins the race. This really talks about adjusting. It really talks about kind of like figuring things out, how this would kind of like work with your family, how things would actually end up. I don't know, maybe you're like dealing with someone who you cannot picture being part of your family. Maybe they cannot picture you being part of your family. Maybe, you know, there are like other things that maybe your family would not accept them. But this kind of like really, really actually looks good. There are like also lots of insecurities over here that I really think there are like so many different layers in the story that I'm seeing. I mean, somebody is really checking you out and you are thinking they're not interested. And that's kind of like where is the crux of the story. That do not give up, because you are not going to lose even if this is only a friend. But you do have these lovers. In a sense, you're in a driver's seat to kind of like move it forward, right? And this writer tells me that, yeah, the road can be bumpy. At times, you might feel being let down. You might feel deserted, right? But if you conduct yourself honorably, because it does look like that maybe something in the past was placed under the question, right? And if you now do the right thing by those you meet along your journey, you will actually really benefit greatly, not just like materially, as I can see the benefits as well that way, but intangibly by winning respect and admiration of all these people that you encounter. So which way do you want to have? Do you want to have a glass half full or glass half empty? This is as simple as that, and I really think you kind of like know the answer. So this also, I do have to tell you, this might talk about legal affairs for those of you who are actually dealing with that. Strange month, December, to deal with that, but it's really usually good news that things are moving forward again, and legal affairs benefit, disputes are generally being resolved to your satisfaction, not everybody's satisfaction. It's not much of a compromise. It's rather kind of like, hey, where do I fit, where do I belong? Because this definitely talks about monetary celebration. It's kind of like feeling, okay, it's benefiting me, it's benefiting my family. Now, this is really not necessarily like when I put these kind of like introduction, the truths, regeneration, and writer together, not just like advice, since kind of like message here is that the only judgment you should rely upon is your own. And this is clearly assuring you that in general you're on the right track. And also kind of like it's telling me that you kind of like need to play your cards close to the chest, because I would not share your kind of like confidences with anyone this month. And the reason for that is that you will feel rattled, and maybe like they're triggering you. And right now, in order to kind of like keep more focus and go down your path, it is like really important to kind of like figure out, you know, that you actually are that leader, like you're the zodiac leader, because you're number one, you have this energy. So let me actually clarify. We only have one major arcana, so I'm clarifying these majors. So let's see what is like the additional information. You have Father of Wands, which is lovely, which is you. It could be you. And you have the Sun reversed. This is actually amazing combination. Sun upright or reversed, it doesn't matter. Many of us really want to see the sunset, and it's like even more amazing than kind of like sun in the noon. So this is still talking about something that the sun is shining. You're going to feel energized, you're going to feel loving, and the Father of Wands is like feeling that energy that you actually really want to commit. Oh my gosh, it's like starting to snow in Toronto, so it's a little kind of like tiny little flakes, no love snow. So this is really telling me that you guys are not only, as kind of like I saw here, getting something rewarding, something that is like so amazing to move forward, like there is like some kind of like extreme joy. And the sun always also talks about children and births and celebrations, and we are right now going into basically Christmas celebration for quite a few of humanity that kind of like do that either for religious or for cultural reasons, right? And this is really talking about happiness and a positive situation, something optimistic. And of course, whenever you shed your old skin and you don't feel stuck anymore, it's going to be really natural. So I don't know, like it's kind of like really weird, because like I was suggesting this like dandelions right before, and this card is generally showing this like big dandelion and this kind of like luck and granting of wishes, right? So this is also telling me that you this card is also representing the gift, and so don't question this gift and don't worry how to use it. Just relax and kind of like find the situation enjoyable, and kind of like be thankful. It almost looks like that you're going to feel strong, even though you're kind of going through some directions that they're not necessarily going to be exactly what you really wanted, because the destiny had a little bit different plan for you. And that plan looks like is that you need to kind of like work on your own strength, because check this out. 19, 1 and 9 is 10. 4 and 6 is 10. And then this is going toward 10. So there is a theme, and 10 is comprised of 1 and 0. So 0 is like cycle. It's the repeating cycle, as I told you, the wheel. As you can see, of course, I see more layers, and don't mind me. But I'm actually really seeing this kind of like second chances available to you, and whatever opportunities maybe you thought you were dead are now revived, but in a different way, in a more authentic and stronger form. So I don't know, like if you have perceived yourself as a failure or loss, or you had something that you kind of like said, okay, that's it, you know, total loss, I'm not thinking about that, kind of like made already decision, but now you're going to go, let me revisit this. So it might be somebody from the past, or it might be simply that you are kind of like resolving some issues from the past, because this and this is clearly telling me that the world is based on connections and relationships, and no matter what kind of loss or what kind of like edginess that kind of cost you in the past, like deaths and endings are only basically illusions, because this is really telling me that there is like this another kind of like life after death, and there is like another love after loss. And in this particular moment, you're like really radiating that regenerative life force energy. Look at it, like you're getting 2 cards with this like enormous radiating, like pulsing energy, and it's also actually making you irresistible. You also have the card Lovers, irresistible to love. In particular, somebody born in the sign of a Leo, it might, like, so fire signs, Leo in particular, fire signs and air signs can be really prominent over here. But even with them, you will need to find common ground and be kind of like more grounded in your approach, right? So now it is a time when you will see the evidence of this new emergence, or maybe you guys can already feel it. So love is actually rising up to greet you. So it really kind of like is going to be lovely and wonderful month for you, and I just like can't wait to hear from you. So as I said, this month is a challenge. I really want to hear from you. I want to know where you're from. It means so much to me, because I'm just voice on the side, so I would like to hear voice on that side. And it's like so nice to be here with you and for you, and it's all worthwhile even if one person gets helped. So I would really like that, as well as if you can support my channel with ordering the annual taroscopes. They're like fun, and they're like supporting kind of like all this kind of like bills that come up because of all this like numerous uploads that I have. And what is really even more important, that you actually come and check your reading a few times, because some big evolvement is going to happen here, and I would like to know all about that. So my dear Aries, you have wonderful holidays, and until the next time, you can get me for your private reading via cattarot.ca. And as I said, until the next time, just make sure you're doing well, and that you actually give them one kiss from me as well. All the best. I love you.